What is the most disgusting thing you have seen? Farmer wrapped around the beater of a manure spreader. I work in safety and do a lot of work in the ag sector. A while ago I had to investigate an accident where a worker was cleaning out a feed truck from inside. He slipped and fell on the blade of one of the auger's balls first, resulting in a severe laceration wound that required surgery to fix. He was also alone and couldn't get out by himself due to the injury, and it took them quite a while to find him. The most frustrating thing I hear in these investigations is, well, we've been doing it like this for years, nothing bad ever happened. Well, great that you've been lucky this long, but if you keep doing dangerous shit, that luck runs out eventually. How I hear that excuse, there's only a 1 in a million chance that something will go wrong during this thing that we will do millions of times over the years. Shout out the nurses, aides and doctors who may visit this thread. I was really close with my grandma in her final years. Very TLDR is that my uncle a few states over had completely neglected her care, so my dad and I moved her where we live to actually care for her. My uncle had never really visited her in her nursing home, and the nursing home more or less neglected her. So she developed a pressure wound that essentially had her screaming any time she moved. I saw that sucker when a nurse went to first examine it in her new facility we moved her to, obviously a much better facility, and where me/my parents could visit her 6 days a week. I'll never get that sight out of my eyes. A fist-deep hole in her back, basically, with part of her spine exposed. Thankfully she received better care and the wound and pain were managed to give her a few pain-minimized years before she eventually succumbed to osteomyelitis. Wound was just too deep by point we got her there. I hope you filed reports with the state of the first nursing home. That's awful. If you think that's awful, https://appnews.com/article/nursing homes neglect death surge 3B74A22014C5A6B5CF05CDF0YAR4F32 nursing home neglect is at an all-time high right now. Saw a kid begging for money for a train ride home. Someone had torn his nose off. What? The autopsy of a singular rotting leg cut off below the knee. I don't know why I continue to drink my fruit smoothie as I read these stories, but I'm starting to regret it. At the Phoenix Zoo back in the 1980s, the big attraction was a baby rhino. Just as adorable as you might imagine. Mama rhino begins to urinate a forced stream of pee. The baby sees this, and being very new to the world, thinks it must be milk. Baby runs to mom and you hear the spectators all shouting no, no, followed by exclamations of disgust as a fire hose of urine hits it. Undaunted, baby tries a few more times and comes out of the event saturated. Cutest pea-soaked creature I've ever seen. Oh, I feel very bad. Oh milk. And it's coming out strong. Can't miss this once in a lifetime opportunity now, can I? Only to be drenched in urine. I think it was like 2nd grade during lunch. The way the cafeteria was set up, it was also the school's auditorium. Down the middle between all the lunch tables, the trash cans were lined up. This kid apparently drank too much chocolate milk and ran to one of the trash cans and started to throw up. As he threw up, he proceeded to catch it with his hands and slurp it back up. This caused most of the cafeteria to then start throwing up and the cafeteria being thrown into chaos. What the fuck was wrong with that kid? Well, I think he drank too much of that chocolate milk. Man was going mental in the car park out front of the general store, screaming if anyone had a pistol on them. I come out of the store and he drops through and shoots shit water out of his ass. It was like seeing the world's filthiest geezer. That shit was so bad he wanna get taken down by lead instead of his own shit lamau. Personal trainer here, finding out that you're training a person who has a butt plug in while they're doing front squats is well, interesting. Edit, well since you guys wanna know, she was wearing some pretty tight spandex, doing front squats and I was just behind her spotting her, making sure her form was good. Now she was already in shape, Just wanted some help with some lifts, analyzing her form, making sure all is well. Yeah, there is no way the outline in her pants was anything else. Her BF was coming home that night from assignment overseas. So do the maths. Butt plug. So she was plugged into the training? A guy I was dating came over to my apartment after work one day. Our relationship was on the rocks because his drinking was getting out of control. So he and I are talking in my small studio and I start to smell ass. My boyfriend smelled horrible, so I passive-aggressively asked him if he smells something bad to try and give him a hint. I tell him that it smells like poop. He claims to not smell anything, stands up from the chair, and says he wants to shower. I turn towards the fridge to grab some stuff to make dinner. I turn back towards him just as I see him put his hand into the crack of his ass, swipe his hand in his ass crack, and then smell it. After seeing that and already being on the rocks, I broke up with him a few days later. I used to work in the medical field, and I was working with a doctor who was draining an abscess. She kept squeezing it harder and harder until it shot pus out, and it splattered on the doctor, me, and maybe worst of all, the wall behind her. I want to say thankfully the wall caught the most of it, but I was tasked to clean it up, so having to work with it post-body expulsion wasn't my favorite day. Don't read before eating, walked into the middle school bathroom stall. Someone took a shit, not a normal shit since there was blood in it and it was all diarrhea. Oh yeah, it was also covering the inside of the bowl and the toilet seat as well, and there was some on the floor that I was fortunate enough to not step in. As far as I am concerned, middle school janitors should have a government merit similar to the Medal of Honor. Red blood not too bad. When it is thick, black, tarry and stink really bad, you have a huge problem. On a stink level it reaches new levels most people did not know existed. I would rather smell a decomposing corpse. Op had a warning on there for anyone that lost their lunch. Microbiologist here. Having smelled this kind of poop many times, I think I'd rather smell the bad poop than a rotting corpse. Had a guy come into the ER that ripped his ball sack open on a wheelchair. As a dude it made me cringe more than anything else I have ever seen. I ripped open my ball sack and dick when I was standing up pedaling on a borrowed bike with no hand grips. The chain broke and the handlebar jammed into my crotch. 32 stitches in my ball sack alone. The impact nearly took my dick off first, and as it cut downwards it tore my sack open wide. They did a good repair job. I've had 3 kids. Edit. Wow, thanks for the awards and comments. Who would have thought my most popular post was about my nutsack? But this is Reddit, so if anyone wants any more gory details, the worst part was the doctor had to put his hand inside the wound while I was awake to see if all the tubes and veins were still connected. I could feel his hand in my abdomen. So painful. The second worst bit was when they removed the stitches. Each one had grown in. That's why I know there were 32. I'll never forget. The best part? As a 12-year-old boy it was pretty awesome to have a cute nurse sponge wash my wang every day for a week. It would have cost you $0 not to put this into my mind every time I ride a bike from on, but here we are. I was a high school janitor years back. While cleaning the boys' locker room I found a coconut in one of the toilets. But it wasn't really a coconut, it was a giant poop that could flush. Obviously I called all the other janitors over to see the monstrosity and help decide what to do with it. When Mr. Tidy Bowl himself walks over, he takes one hand and scoops it up like he's picking up a softball, then just chucks it in my trash can and goes back to work like we just wasted his time. Mr. Tidy Bowl must have seen some bad shit in his life. Literally and figuratively. I'm imagining a Russian janitor for some reason. I used to work in trauma blood bank, and I saw some gory stuff. But truly gross. Pre-COVID I saw a patient from long-term care with an infected/ruptured ostomy site. Pus chunks and bloody shit liquid poured out when they pressed on it before temporary dressing. I didn't gag on the patient's room, but I'm scarred for life, so win-win. WTF, how's that a win-win? I work as a gas station cashier in a rural area, and one day we had a young woman come in, absolutely reeking and had what looked like shit and semen all over her shirt. She apologized and said she worked in horse breeding. I didn't ask. See? It's important to have a job with purpose, boys. That's why I manually masturbate monkeys for artificial insemination. Yeah, but why do you insist on drinking the semen after you finish the job? I'm probably going to hell for this. I was driving a friend of mine to an outpatient program we both attended. Everything was go fine and dandy until my friend screams at me to pull over, which I do, and then I smell it. Turns out she was abusing laxatives pretty badly and she had basically had a poop attack in my car. I was not mad at first, until I dropped her back home and realized it was all over my seat. Also, my seats are fabric, not leather or something that I could have easily whipped off. This was like 3 years ago and I still get the occasional whiff of it every now and then. I felt bad, but come on now. I fail to grasp why or how one would abuse laxatives. Can someone in the medical field fill me in here? Just, what the fuck? Poop attack? Bro, I'm sorry. Probably for weight loss. Sounds like they might have been going to an eating disorder outpatient program. I didn't see it, but my mom saw it. A couple years ago, I think it was in 2018, a woman fell out of the window on the 90th floor. We are living in 3rd floor. Mom looked around the window and saw the body. The woman's face was heavily smashed. Update: it happened on the 12th of February 2019. A couple years ago I was a supervisor at a beach. Every night before we closed we would go clean the bathhouses and take out garbages and stuff like that. This one night I was cleaning out the men's restroom and this old man came in and went into a stall to do his business. From the sound of it he was exorcising some sort of demon. Anyway, he finishes up, no flush. Walks out of the stall, makes eye contact with me and nods. Then walks up to a garbage can and pulls his pants down to the floor and his briefs down to his knees. He must not have pulled his pants down to do his business because it was all in there. He proceeded to scoop it out with his bare hand and dump it into the trash can. When he was seemingly satisfied he pulled his dirty underwear up and pulled his pants back up, whipped his hand on his back pocket and walked out without washing. I just kinda stood there mortified. I left the bathroom and my shiftmate said I looked like I saw a ghost, I was so white. Dementia. Sad. Maybe. My mother-in-law with dementia lives with us and does weird things like this. She sees that she got poop in her undies, I don't know if she doesn't wipe or what happens, and she knows she needs clean underwear, but instead of taking the first pair off, she just puts a clean pair on top of that. When my husband helps her change, she sometimes has 4 to 5 pairs of underwear on. Edit: she's not shitting herself. No, I can't check her panties every time she goes to the bathroom or take her to the bathroom every few hours because she is defiant with me. She knows when and how to go to the bathroom, but like I said, she just doesn't wipe well and then gets confused when she needs to change her underwear. Edit: 2, people. I'm not looking for advice. We've got it under control. We've been dealing with it for years. It's really just strong skid marks. She is not shitting herself. My point was that people with dementia often don't understand the steps to accomplish a task and do strange things in an attempt to solve a problem. Ooh, I've shared this story a long time ago. Zookeeper here. I'm fairly certain we had a guest intentionally get pissed on by a lion. He came into the zoo early in the morning when we opened, and I first saw him standing near the lion enclosure, right up against the fence, when we let the lions out of the night stall. We have signs warning that the lions spray urine to mark territory, and they've been known to spray guests up to 6 feet through the fence, but I figured he was unaware. So I tell him, be careful, back up, the lions spray you if you're that close. He nodded, backed away, kept his head down. Half an hour later, as I'm cleaning, I see him right back up to the enclosure fence, closer than before. I'm not kidding, you're going to get sprayed, I told him. Backed away again. That was the last I saw of him, but I had a co-worker telling me half an hour later that sure enough, some guy got pissed on head to toe by our male lion, before walking straight out of the zoo. We got complaints all the rest of the day about how the bench area that he walked through reeked like cat piss, too. Fun times. He just wants some respect from his kitty cat at home. Now he smells dominant. Neighborhood dogs are now terrified of him. My best friend's roommate used chewing tobacco. She liked Skoal. She used to spit into various capped bottles that she'd keep nearby and in arm's length, and dispose of them when she was done. Her girlfriend was over one evening, and we were in a heated discussion about something. I can't remember now, it's not at all pertinent to the story. Roommate left the room to relieve herself at a height of laughs and friendly arguing. Girlfriend reached for her soda and took a few gulps. It was not her soda. I still gag to this day, thinking about it. I witnessed it. I can't even imagine what the girlfriend experienced. In high school, we used to have assigned seats for study hall because the monitor was a bitch. I was stuck next to this kid in 10th grade who'd chew Skoal wintergreen and spit it into a bottle. It legit smelled like wet ashtray, the undisputed worst tobacco-related smell. It's like rotting fish and vomit. It's funny you described the smell. My friend and I were in total shock that the girlfriend got it so close to her face without smelling it and stopping before taking 2 gulps. My God. She couldn't rationalize what had happened. There has to be some PTSD from that. A video of a dog's anal glands being expressed. OMG. And apparently vets and groomers have to do this regularly. How do they do it? Just the sight was gross, can't imagine the smell. Larger dogs tend to have fewer problems with this because their poop is big enough to help express the glands naturally, but smaller dogs frequently have the issue. Not fun for the vet, not fun for the dog. Also what you feed them. When my dog ate wet food, his anal glands needed expressing. When we switched him to dry food, the extra fiber seemed to help self-express them. Visiting a penguin colony, saw a penguin diarrhea shit all over another penguin. They have what is the consistency of diarrhea naturally. Did the backstage tour at SeaWorld. We were warned they shoot it out 6. How bad does it stink? I've heard it's different/worse than dog poop. I work at a public park, and once saw a woman having to pick up her dog's poop with their bare hands, gagging, with a cop standing next to her. Apparently we have a law here that if you're caught not picking up dog poop, you can be forced to do it with bare hands. And the law is worded cleverly to avoid it being classified as a punishment. It's an affirmative defense to the crime of dog fouling if the person, after being informed of their crime by an officer, picks it up with bare hands. But it's not an affirmative defense to pick it up with a baggie, gloves, etc. If they went back and did that, they'd still be arrested for the initial crime of dog fouling. It must work well because I hardly ever see dog poop anymore. That definitely does not sound like a real law so much as a cop that just enjoyed fucking with people. Once I saw a guy get stabbed in his neck and he came walking up to me for help, and as he was talking to me blood was literally squirting out of his neck. Also somebody shit all over the floor and wall of the stalls and sprayed blood all over the ceiling. I assume it was from a syringe. This all happened at the place I work at in a span of a couple weeks. Let me guess. Hotel? Lol, that would actually be somewhat understandable. This shit happened at the friendly neighborhood Walmart LMFAO. Melted looking cat in my mom's basement. This cat had gotten in from outside and got stuck in the furnace room. It had been eaten by what had to have been a sea of rats, based on the number of huge rat turds all over the floor. All that was left was black fur and bones, and I had to clean it up. I still can't look at cats and not think of it. Goddamn. Poor cat. Was stepping off a bus in Africa, saw a homeless man dropping a deuce over a fire, then picked up some coals and wiped his ass with them. Oh, out of all things this one ruined my day. Fournier's gangrene. I wasn't disgusted, I just felt bad for the guy and seeing that come out of a human body. Talk on the town is that this is what Harvey Weinstein has. Couldn't happen to a nice guy. I was an anesthesia tech for a while. One time a woman had a botched hysterectomy at a different hospital. The surgeon had nicked her colon and her abdomen filled with pus and shit. After 3 days she came to us septic. In the ore we used large suction containers on wheels. I forget how many gallons they took, but we filled 3 of them on her. That one was the worst thing I've ever smelled, poor lady. While cleaning out some trash from a garbage pile in a garage, I found an old maxi pad with a little dead lizard stuck to it. It was heavily used and all dried out. What a weird death for that lizard. Really fucking gross too. That's a sad and fucked way to go. Poor lizard. Downstairs neighbors moved out and we started getting overrun with roaches. Never saw a single one previously. So we went downstairs to check out the empty apartment. It was literally like something out of a horror movie, roaches covering every surface. I seriously can't believe we hadn't had any roaches before. We went and bought some roach bombs and they were done within a few days. Crazy stuff.